when Philippine Marines hunted Asia's most feared terrorists. In the pre-dawn darkness of May 27, 2001, the serene rhythm of waves on a pristine island resort in the Philippines was shattered. The roar of speedboat engines and the crack of gunfire ripped through the air. Armed men, faces hidden by masks, stormed the luxurious Dos Palmas resort. They smashed down doors, dragging stunned tourists and staff from their beds. Among them were Martin and Gracia Burnham, an American missionary couple celebrating their 18th anniversary, and a Californian tourist named Guillermo Sobero. Within minutes, 20 people were forced at gunpoint onto boats and vanished into the vast, dark expanse of the Sulu Sea. This wasn't just a robbery, it was a declaration. Asia's most feared terrorist group, Abu Sayyaf, had struck with shocking impunity, sparking an international crisis and triggering one of the most brutal manhunts in modern history. With the world watching and the hostages' lives hanging by a thread, the Philippine government faced a terrifying question. How do you hunt an enemy that owns the jungle? The answer would come from their most elite fighting force, an answer written in blood, sweat, and unrelenting determination. This is the story of how the Philippine Marines were sent to dismantle a terror group in its own fortress, a year-long campaign through a jungle hell where every step could be their last. Chapter 1. The Problem, a Reign of Terror. To understand the hunt, you have to understand the monster. The Abu Sayyaf group, or ASG, wasn't a conventional army. They were a vicious hybrid of separatist ideology and pure criminal enterprise, born from the radical splinters of the Moro National Liberation Front in the early 1990s. Their name translates to bearer of the sword, and they wielded it with sickening brutality. The group was founded by the charismatic Abdurrazak Janjalani, but after his death in 1998, his younger brother Gaddafi Janjalani took command, continuing their reign of terror. Their stated goal was to establish an independent Islamic state in the southern Philippines, but their methods were funded by a campaign of bombings, extortion, and their infamous specialty, kidnap for ransom. Even before the Dos Palmas raid, ASG had carved out a fearsome reputation, kidnapping dozens of civilians, including school children and priests. Just a year earlier, in 2000, they'd abducted 21 people, mostly European tourists, from a Malaysian resort, cementing their status as a transnational threat. They operated with a chilling logic. Their jihadist agenda was fueled by millions in ransom money, and their brand of terror was built on the public execution of anyone whose ransom wasn't paid. They were ghosts, operating from the islands of Basilan and Jolo, a world of impenetrable jungles and supportive local clans that made them nearly impossible to track. The Dos Palmas kidnapping was their most audacious move yet. After forcing the 20 captives onto speedboats, their brutal reign began immediately, with one man who resisted the abduction being shot and killed. For the hostages, including the Burnhams, it was the start of a nightmare that would stretch for more than a year. They were now pawns in Abu Sayyaf's deadly game, human currency for men who'd proven time and again they had no problem beheading their victims. The gauntlet had been thrown. Failure was not an option. The world was demanding a response, and the only force capable of delivering one was about to be unleashed. Chapter 2. The Response. Unleash the Marines. Faced with a national humiliation and an international crisis, Manila's response had to be swift and decisive. The order came down. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, would launch a full-scale operation to rescue the hostages and destroy Abu Sayyaf. And at the very tip of that spear were the Philippine Marines. The Philippine Marine Corps, Hukbong Kawal Pandagat ng Pilipinas, is a force forged in the fires of insurgency. Their motto, Karangalan, Katungkulan, Kabayanihan, honor, duty, heroism, isn't just a slogan, it's a creed beaten into every recruit through some of the most grueling training on Earth. They are masters of amphibious assaults, but their real home is the green hell of the jungle, the exact environment where Abu Sayyaf held invincible. For decades, the Marines had been battling separatist and communist insurgencies across the archipelago, giving them a hard-won, intimate understanding of guerrilla warfare. Their training is relentless, focused on small unit tactics, marksmanship, and sheer physical and mental endurance. They learn to navigate through triple canopy jungle where you can't see 10 feet in front of you, to survive on what the land gives them, and to track an enemy that moves like smoke. Elite units like the Force Recon Company are the Philippines' answer to U.S. Navy SEALs, specialists in operating deep behind enemy lines with little to no support. When the call came, no one had any illusions how hard this would be. This wasn't a battle, it was a pursuit. They were being sent into Abu Sayyaf's backyard, the island of Basilan, a 500-square-mile maze of mountains, dense jungle, and hostile villages where it was impossible to tell friend from foe. The terrorists knew every trail, every cave, every escape route. The Marines would be fighting the enemy, the terrain, the climate, and the constant gnawing fear of an ambush around every corner. They were the solution, but the problem was a venomous snake that had retreated deep into its fortress. The hunt was on. Chapter 3. The hunt begins. Into the green hell. Deploying to Basilan was like entering another world. For the Marines, this was the heart of the conflict, a place they simply called the Green Hell. The air is so thick with humidity it feels like a physical weight. The jungle canopy blots out the sun, casting the forest floor in a perpetual gloom. Leeches latch on to exposed skin, and the constant drone of insects is a maddening soundtrack to the tension. This was the arena where Abu Sayyaf held every advantage. They were born in it, masters of its subtle rhythms. The initial phase of the operation was a brutal lesson in frustration. The Marines, weighed down with gear and moving in disciplined patrols, were hunting an enemy that simply refused to stand and fight. ASG used classic guerrilla tactics, a quick burst of rifle fire from a hidden position, then melting back into the jungle, leaving behind only casualties and confusion. They moved in small, fast groups, relying on a network of sympathizers and frightened villagers for intelligence, food, and shelter. Tracking them was like catching mist. Just days into the crisis, the world saw just how ruthless Abu Sayyaf could be. On June 2, 2001, cornered and with wounded fighters, the terrorists brazenly stormed Lamitan, the Christian heart of Basilan. They seized the Dr. Joseph Torres Memorial Hospital and the nearby St. Peter's Church, taking everyone inside, doctors, nurses, patients, even a priest, as new hostages. The siege of Lamitan descended into chaos. Philippine Army Scout Rangers and Marines surrounded the compound, but their hands were tied. Abu Sayyaf snipers took up positions in the church bell tower, picking off soldiers in the street. As the firefight raged, the terrorists used their hostages as leverage, forcing them to make radio pleas for the military to back off. It was a tactical nightmare. The soldiers were locked in a standoff, unable to use their full firepower without causing a massacre. Then, under the cover of darkness and surrounded by controversy over alleged ransom payments, the ASG leaders and their core fighters slipped through the military cordon. They escaped the siege, dragging their original hostages, including the Burnhams, with them. They left behind a scene of carnage and a number of local hostages who were later found executed. The Lamitan siege was a bloody and embarrassing chapter for the AFP. It proved Abu Sayyaf wasn't just a gang of thugs. They were cunning, merciless, and would do anything to survive. For the Marines on the ground, the message was clear. This enemy couldn't be beaten with caution. The hunt had to become as relentless as the hunted.
Chapter 4. Setbacks and Brutality. A Year of Bloodshed. The escape from Lamitan kicked off the long, agonizing heart of the campaign. The year that followed was a grueling nightmare of jungle warfare and terrorist depravity. For the hostages, it was an unimaginable ordeal. They were dragged through the rugged mountains of Basilan, always moving. Gracia Burnham would later recall the endless marches, her feet rubbed raw and bloody, constantly trying to evade the pursuing military. The Abu Sayyaf's cruelty only intensified. Just days after the Lamitan siege, on the Philippines' Independence Day of June 12th, the group's media-savvy spokesman, Abu Sayyaf, announced they had beheaded American hostage Guillermo Sobero. His body was found months later, confirming the horrifying threat. Other Filipino hostages met the same fate, their executions a barbaric message to the government. Ransom payments secured the release of some, but for the American Burnhams and a Filipina nurse named Edibora Yap, there was no escape. They remained ASG's most valuable prizes. For the Marines, the psychological toll was immense. Patrols were nerve-shredding affairs, with the constant threat of improvised explosive devices and ambushes lurking behind every tree. They were fighting an enemy that could be anywhere and nowhere at once, in a war that was both intimate and vicious. But then, the world changed. The September 11th attacks on the United States galvanized a global response to terrorism. Abu Sayyaf, with its known links to al-Qaeda, was now firmly in Washington's crosshairs. In January 2002, this new reality arrived in the southern Philippines. Under the banner of Operation Enduring Freedom Philippines, the first wave of what would become over 1,000 U.S. military personnel began to arrive, including about 160 elite Green Berets. Their mission, part of joint exercises called Balikatan, or shoulder to shoulder, was strictly defined. U.S. forces would not engage in direct combat, but would act as advisors. They brought with them the immense resources of the American military, advanced spy drones, secure communications gear, and decades of special operations expertise. They embedded with the Philippine Marines, training them, helping plan operations, and most importantly, providing the critical intelligence needed to finally pinpoint their ghostly enemy. The spear was about to be sharpened. Chapter 5: The Tide Turns, Sharpening the Spear. The arrival of American support wasn't a silver bullet, but it was a game changer. The dynamic of the hunt began to slowly but surely shift. The game of hide and seek that Abu Sayyaf had mastered was getting much, much harder to play. The key was intelligence. U.S. spy planes and drones began flying over the dense jungles, and their thermal and signals intelligence could pick up what was invisible from the ground: campfires, radio transmissions, any trace of the terrorists. This information was funneled directly to Philippine Marine commanders, allowing them to move with purpose, not just patrol with hope. Instead of blindly combing through miles of jungle, they could now tighten the noose around specific areas. The American presence also supercharged another critical part of counterinsurgency: civil-military operations. While the Marines were hunting in the hills, U.S. and Filipino forces were working in the villages, providing medical aid, building schools, and digging wells. This was about winning hearts and minds and breaking the wall of terrified silence that protected the ASG. Villagers who once feared talking to the military now saw a real benefit. A trickle of human intelligence began to flow, adding to the high-tech surveillance from above. Informants, tired of ASG's brutality, started talking. The pressure on Abu Sayyaf became relentless. Their safe havens weren't safe anymore. Marine Force recon teams, acting on fresh intelligence, launched surgical raids on suspected camps. The ASG was forced to stay on the move, never able to rest or regroup. Their supply lines were cut. The hunter was now constantly on their heels, and the strain began to show. The group's leaders, used to taunting the government from their jungle hideouts, were now the ones being hunted. The primary target was Aldam Tilao, better known as Abu Sabaya. As the group's spokesman, his voice was all over the radio, mocking the military's efforts. A $5 million bounty was placed on his head. With the combined intelligence assets of two nations focused on him, his time was running out. The constant pressure from the Philippine Marines on the ground, guided by the electronic eyes in the sky, meant a final confrontation was no longer a question of if, but when. The tide was turning, but the final cost of this operation was yet to be paid. The combination of Philippine courage and American technology was cornering a deadly enemy, but the most dangerous moments were still to come. If you're finding this story of relentless pursuit and brutal warfare compelling, take a moment to hit the subscribe button and join us for more deep dives into military history. Chapter 6: A Bitter Victory. By June 2002, after a full year of relentless pursuit, the intelligence picture finally became clear. An informant cultivated through the joint effort, pinpointed the location of Abu Sayyaf's group and the remaining hostages, Martin and Gracia Burnham and nurse Edibora Yap, in the jungles near Sirawai, Zamboanga Norte. The end of the hunt was here. The rescue mission was launched. On June 7, 2002, a team of Philippine soldiers, guided by the latest intelligence, closed in on the ASG camp. As they moved through the rain-soaked jungle, a firefight erupted. The soldiers had strict orders to use single-aimed shots to avoid hitting the hostages. But in the chaos of a jungle ambush, tragedy struck. After a brief gun battle, the remaining terrorists fled. When the soldiers secured the area, they found Gracia Burnham alive but wounded in her leg. Her husband, Martin Burnham, lay dead, hit with 3 bullets to the chest. The Filipina nurse, Edibora Yap, had also been killed in the crossfire. After 376 days in brutal captivity, the chase was over. But the victory was undeniably bitter. President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo saluted the troops and vowed that the terror would not be allowed to stand. The hunt immediately shifted to the survivors. The net closed around Abu Sayyaf. Just 2 weeks later, on June 21st, a Philippine Navy Special Warfare team intercepted a boat carrying Sayyaf and his remaining men. In the firefight that followed, Abu Sayyaf was shot and killed, his body sinking into the sea. His death was a massive blow to the ASG, removing its most public and defiant leader. The momentum continued. The sustained pressure from the AFP, empowered by U.S. support, had crippled Abu Sayyaf. In September 2006, the group's overall leader, Gaddafi Janjalani, was tracked down and killed in a clash on Jolo Island. The death of its core leadership sent the organization into a steep decline. Its strength fell from over 1,000 fighters to just a few hundred. While splinter groups would continue to pose a threat for years, the Abu Sayyaf that shocked the world at Dos Palmas was effectively dismantled. The year-long campaign to rescue the Dos Palmas hostages was a brutal, ugly, and imperfect war. It was a story with the highest of stakes, marked by both tragic failure and ultimate costly success. The price was steep: the lives of Martin Burnham and Edibora Yap, and the dozens of Filipino soldiers who fell during the relentless pursuit. Yet the operation stands as a landmark case study in modern counterterrorism. It proved that even the most elusive jungle-based terror group isn't invincible. It was a powerful demonstration of a dual strategy: the grinding, relentless pressure of a determined ground force, personified by the Philippine Marines, combined with the technological and advisory power of a key ally. It showed that military action, when paired with civil development to win over the local population, can sever a terror group from its lifeblood. But most of all, this is a story about the quiet and unyielding courage of the Filipino soldiers. They were the ones who stepped into the green hell, who faced the ambushes, who endured the strain, and who paid the ultimate price. They hunted a monster in its own lair, and accidentally, against all odds, they won. The world may remember the headlines, but the unforgiving jungles of the southern Philippines remember the footsteps of the Marines who walked into the darkness and simply refused to back down.